as ever, a Q&A function on your screens that you can put your questions to speakers there. For this session, I'll be doing my best to both monitor them and feed 4 or 5 of those questions through to Hazel. This morning, we'll look more in detail at some of the key financial mechanisms with examples of the Peatland Code in action and how such schemes can help deliver landscape-scale environmental recovery. Later, you'll hear firsthand from the Peatland partnerships about how projects are delivered on the ground and how they've navigated from initial ambition to developing long-term solutions. Finally, this afternoon, we'll look at training the people needed to deliver our peatland goals. We're going to deliver our strategic goals for peatland at the urgent pace that the climate and biodiversity crises demand. We're going to need the contractors, the project managers, and the workforce skilled up and ready to go. As we look to the future, one of the biggest challenges is how we put long-term mechanisms in place to ensure the full recovery of peatlands along their restoration trajectory to being completely restored, as well as maintain those that are in good health. And finance and funding are, of course, central to this. They're not the only challenges, but they're certainly a very big one. Both government and the corporate world recognise that we need a more sustainable future and that green recovery has real benefits for society. And we've seen from this conference just how much peatlands are a prime example, I think I'd argue the best example, of a nature-based solution that can help meet our long-term aspirations for a better and greener world. So as we look initially at finance, the future is surely one that blends resources from the public purse, from business, and to some degree from philanthropic giving. And we need reliable metrics that give confidence to the investor, be they public or private, and indeed to landowners and delivery partners. And there surely needs to be some consistency here for governments to make the most of restored and well-managed peatlands' contribution to our national move towards net zero. So I like a good stat, and I'd just like to share with you for a moment a few numbers around the relative investment by the public purse in peatland restoration. Let's take as our benchmark the approximately £200 million that it would take to restore the remaining damaged peatland in the north of England that is the focus of the Great North Bog Initiative. The government spent £500 million on the Eat Out to Help Out campaign. This alone could have restored all the degraded blanket bog in northern England 2.5 times. The government's Winter Survival Fund for Rugby Union, this winter alone, £135 million. Nothing against rugby union, apart from the fact that it's not rugby league, but that would be 67.5% of the sum needed to restore all the North's peatlands. And finally, for the money spent on the London Garden Bridge without actually building a bridge, that's 25% of the North's blanket bog restoration needs that could have been met. Now, I'm not saying that at least the first 2 of those are not worthy things. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're a legitimate expenditure of government. But it does mean that these things are about choices, and choices can be made to secure a greener future through peatland restoration if we want. The good news is that private sectors say they want to invest, the public sector money is clearly there. And we all need to work together to make sure this process is simple, transparent, efficient, and effective. So in many ways, we shouldn't start by looking at the cost of investing, but the cost of not investing. And that's what our first speaker today is going to cover. So I'd like to introduce Hazel Trenbirth from the Office of National Statistics, who will look at just how cost-effective peatland restoration really is. Hazel.
Hello, I'm Hazel from the Office for National Statistics. I'd like to present to you the work that Adam and myself did when we did the natural capital of peatlands, including looking at the restoration costs. So just to put it into context, when we were looking at this work, currently there's no sort of single objective in the UK for a sort of course of action for restoration. The Committee on Climate Change suggested 55% of the peatlands to be restored by 2050, but they didn't say so which 55%. And we only have a sort of course description of the condition and the extent of the peatlands at the moment. So, how did we calculate the restoration benefits? Well, we took the data from the implementation of an emissions inventory for UK peatlands that CEH led the work on, and we looked at the different land classifications. We then looked at different restoration costs for different types of peatlands and different restoration methods to come up with a sort of per hectare cost for then each intervention that was needed. And then we presented an alternative methods for achieving this 55% restoration. So where did we get our data from? We got the restoration data from a variety of sources, but the main ones were the work done by the University of Leeds on their work, how much does peatland restoration costs, and the work that the Climate Exchange, the peatland restorations work done by Rebecca, looking at the sort of comparative analysis and sort of the costs and benefits of different methods. So those are the main sources. But if you'd like to see all our sources, please look at our publication. So then looked at interventions. So what do we need to do if we're going to restore this peatland? So we looked at the different land cover types that were in the report by CEH, and we sort of had 4 basic objectives for this method. We looked at, first, you've got to stop or mitigate the activities that are currently damaging the peat, and then you want to remove unwanted vegetation on the peatlands, and then you've got to ensure then that the ground remains sufficiently wet after you take the vegetation away. And then do you need to add any new plant species if they're absent that should be there? So we looked at those 4 things when we're looking at this matrix you've got in front of you. So for example, the forest, obviously you'd want to deforest it, you want to remove the forest vegetation, and you can see from we looked at things like grip blocking, scrub removing, reprofiling, does it need mowing after it's been restored, and we looked at something called opportunity cost, and this is the sort of the cost per hectare if you're still going to use it for some agricultural use, and we've got data from the Farm Business Survey. But we also looked at, say, an alternative opportunity costing, because you may still want to have things like conservation grazing on the land to benefit it. And for this we looked at the Nick's Pocket Farm Management Book for costs. Because you may have the conservation grazing, which is obviously a lot lower levels than maybe intensive farming. So those are why there's a difference between opportunity costs, and we also provide an alternative. So those some of the categories on there. On the next slide, for example, we looked at the land use categories of grassland. There we considered you might want to have upland livestock, or you might want to have an alternative, you just might have low levels of sheep grazing. So we looked at these different things to come up with a sort of per value hectare. What we really don't understand is the hydrology. So we need some more information on the costs of pumping water. For example, in the Fens, the land is below sea level. In some places there's a lot of water pumping going on. We need more detailed costs. If we want to keep the restored peatlands re-wetted, there's obviously a cost involved in that. Do you need pumping or not? So we need more information on that to understand it better. And also the peat depths. There's not sort of UK-wide information on the depths of the peats. You don't know how much longer the peat's going to last. So some areas it is still used for agriculture and currently wasting away. How much peat is left, how many years have you got the peat left? There are different estimates. So this is something we also need more data on. What we then did with the information, we created some different cost estimates and to look at the value over 100 years for the different sort of peatland types. And the basic cost is we selected the lowest value for restoration methods that have been presented to us in the sort of research we found. So we looked at the lowest values of restoring these different types of land use. You've got your forest, natural bog, so how much it's going to cost. And then we sort of looked at the sensitivity cost. This is the higher cost values, the higher estimates of restoring the land per hectare. So you can see there's a difference in values. What we want to do, not just pick one value, but to see there's a range of values depending on the restoration that you choose. Then we looked at the carbon emissions. We're still not sure how much peat is left. When we were looking at the benefits from stopping the peat emitting carbon and sequestering, we had a sort of simplified assumption that the restoration that is going to be done will be done in the first 10 years. And then after that, you've got 90 years of benefit where the peatlands is doing what it should be doing and not emitting your greenhouse gases. So that was a sort of our assumptions for working out the benefits. And we looked at the land cover types again from the CH report, and the estimated CO2 emissions we took from that report. We looked at the land, the area, and the amount of emissions, and then we sort of applied the benefits using the Bayes non-traded carbon prices to estimate a sort of 100 years worth of benefit if the peatlands was restored. And as you can see, in 100 years, it's suggesting that the benefits would be 109 billion, so it's not insignificant. And we applied this to the net benefits if we used the suggested the Committee on Climate Change 55% restoration. We're suggesting that the sort of the net present value of the carbon benefits alone is 45 to sort of 51 billion. It is an estimate. And that's, you're sort of saving, the benefits you get are 5 times more than the actual cost of restoring. So it shows it's worth, it's really beneficial to restore the peatlands and not let them carry on degrading. So why is this important? Well, we feel it's much more important and more cost effective to society to obviously restore them than let them carry on degrading. But to do this, we do need some more data to refine our sort of calculation costs, to refine our data. So the future we see to carry on, so refining the estimates. We do need regular mapping and monitoring on extent, depth and condition of the peatlands if you want to carry on doing the natural capital accounts for peatlands to show the benefits that the peatlands provides to society, and also want better costings on the different restoration techniques to develop better estimates for the future. And what's really important, these restoration costs need to be recorded so consistently and published, because it's been very difficult to get data on this. So I think going forward is really important that this data is recorded so we can have data for analysis. And then from this, we can get a sort of per hectare cost then for each restoration method. So we need your data. You're the experts out there, so please speak to us. We really need your data on different restoration costs that you may be using for your project. Please come contact us. And the different techniques you use, because one restoration technique doesn't fit all. It depends on the location and the state of the peat, so we do need it. And then for ONS, we like to say we then produce statistics for the public good. We can provide you better data. So please contact us. There's my email at the top and Adam's. And as you can see there, I got very excited last year. I went and saw the home post in the Fens for the first time. And I think what better example to show than the effect that the humans have had on the peatlands. So I think it's really important that this work carries on. Publications on the website, the Natural Capital Peatlands, and we do have a full Eurostat report with quite a lot of details on the restoration. So please contact us and we can email it to you. Okay, thank you for listening, and I'll be in the Q&A session.
Thanks very much, Hazel. Well, we've had the recorded Hazel. We now have the live Hazel with us this morning. And we've got some questions. We've got some questions starting to flood in here. We've got about 10 minutes, so hopefully you can help us out here. So first of all, are there any plans to update the ONS baseline estimates of do nothing by collecting additional data from the wider partnership? Because most of the data comes from the University of Leeds and CXC studies, I think, and there's lots of new information on peat depth, hydrology and restoration costs out there. So will you be updating your baseline?
Yeah, that's what we're planning to at the moment. I'm in the phase of investigating, is it possible to update it? Is there updated information out there? And I'm currently on a research phase to see whether we can do it in 2021 and 2022. So as I said in my message, please do contact us with your costs or data. Gratefully received. Anything, yeah.
Well, people will be dying to send you data, listening to you.
Yeah.
That data out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Question from Clifton Bain. You'll all know Clifton. Can you perhaps identify the research requirements to improve your analysis? And do you have any suggestions to help get that research and survey funded?
This is tricky when we realised that when we were doing the report last year, that we have very little knowledge and understanding, as I mentioned, about on hydrology and the role the water level takes, and also any additional pumping that may be needed. I've been out 2 trips to the Fens and I've seen it in action myself. It is needed in the Fens, but is it needed in any other areas? So it's sort of carrying on the work that was started by CH when they did the Peatlands map. You know, we need much better detail on the extent and the condition of it. And I've seen some presentations this week on using aerial images and ways to improve condition and better understanding of peak depth. I think what a lot of people have been proposing this week is definitely what's needed, and also a greater understanding of the emissions, I think, from peatland, which Bays are currently working on. I don't think that data is going to be available soon. So it's a sort of continuation of what CEH has been working, I think, with Bays and DEFRA on different projects for them to carry on.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure a lot of that data is out there. We need some, rather than me just saying, everybody send your data to Hazel, there needs to be some coordinated work, perhaps through the IUCN UK team, to make sure that that data that's out there at the minute is put in front of you, and that you can have a proper ask for the things that you need. Chris Field has asked us, there seems to be a lot of financial incentive to restore, rightly so. Yeah. Chris wonders, how can we reward a landowner for maintaining peatland in good condition? Do you have any thinking around the numbers around that?
Yeah, that's something we haven't really looked at ONS, because we're not a policy making department. We just provide the facts. And I think this work has been looked at as the replacement to with coming out of the EU and the farming. I was talking to colleagues, I think, from Natural England last week, and they say they are looking at different ways how you can reward farmers for sort of restoration benefits or better use of the land. But that is currently being investigated and researched.
Yeah,
it's
not necessarily your pigeon either, but
no.
Farmers and landowners are always saying to me, but what about the store of sitting on? In terms of the argument for peatland restoration, the benefits of peatland over other things, have similar cost benefit analyses been made for other types of conservation intervention, so woodland creation, for instance? And how do they stack up if they have, how do they stack up in terms of cost savings and economic benefits compared with the amazing numbers that you gave us for peatland?
I personally haven't seen any figures for other land restoration techniques. I don't know if that's something Forest Research are doing. When we looked at the natural capital woodlands, we only looked at the benefits it provided. We didn't look at restoration costs. We did the restoration of peatlands because it was part of an Eurostat funded project. It included the natural capital and restoration. But as far as I know, there's no sort of one government organisation putting together some data on this. And I think it is really important to show the difference. Like somebody yesterday mentioned, a costing is needed to sort of sell the opportunity to restore peat as a means of this net zero. I can't remember the chap's name who mentioned it, but if we could provide the tools to say, roughly, if you restore this area as this benefits, it can then be provided against data provided for, like say, the likes of Forest Research or the Forestry Commission parts of the UK. I think it's definitely needed to show the benefits of different sort of types of habitat.
I think it is. I think it's particularly needed to show the benefit of very strange woodland planting on perfectly decent peatlands recently.
Yeah.
Sarah Proctor has asked us, if the cost of letting peatlands degrade is 5 times more than restoring them, what do you think we need to do as a kind of a peatland community, and with your support, to raise awareness of this cost benefit analysis to policy and decision makers?
I think we need to go out there and keep banging on about it, as I say to people. And after we published the Peatlands Natural Capital last year with the restoration, it did get picked up a lot by the media, and I had a lot of smaller organisations such as yourself come to me and said they'd been contacted since the figures were released, and there was a lot of local interest in different parts of the UK in restoring peatlands in their area, and it's definitely seen now as a way to mitigate climate change. It's definitely sort of upped its game, and I think we need to just carry on the pressure, keep saying these figures, and making people aware there is a lot of carbon stored in the peatlands more than woodlands, and how vital it is if we restore it. This is the benefits you're going to get. I think we've just got to keep on sort of hassling people.
I think we can say this till we're blue in the face to death.
Yeah.
These are treasury numbers. You know, £109 billion benefit. That's a number the Treasury is interested in. Let me see, who else do we have questions from? So let's go across to Ireland. Catherine Farrell says, we're developing natural capital accounts at a catchment scale in Ireland. How involved is the ONS with the peatland and ecology and restoration community to ensure robust outcomes? So are you actively engaged? I mean, you're here today, aren't you? But are you actively engaging with that community to help with accounting of that nature?
Yes, I've been, since we published the Peatlands report, I'm still in contact with a lot of different organisations when I can. I know until the COVID came, I was on the project that was looking at lowland peatlands and agriculture in the fens with CH and DEFRA, and I was supposed to go out and see the trials this year, so I'm on that project board and another project board, and I do keep in touch with a few organisations I successfully managed to make contact with. But I'm more than happy if people want to contact me, because what we need is more data in different areas, and Northern Ireland especially is one that is very difficult, I found, to get data for. So I'd be grateful if people would contact me, and we sort of, by understanding the local needs, you can put together then the UK picture. And I think it's more beneficial to have a regional, when we call them natural capital, than just the UK.
I think if people are contacting Hazel with their data and information, you've heard the kinds of data and information needs that Hazel and her colleagues have. That's great to be contacting her individually. I do think that if we get something concrete out of this session, trying to arrange some sort of coordinated engagement with the ONS about the full range of data and information that's needed would be incredibly useful, I think. Last one, we've got 1 minute. Rather than take you through one of those questions, is there anything else that you really want to say about what you need from us as a community?
No, as I said, it's just more data, more information, and I've been out and seen some amazing projects, but there needs to be a central place where this sort of data stored, where UCN Peatland can do it. I think Leeds was setting something up, but there needs to be somewhere where it's a go-to place for anyone, including ONS, who wants restoration data to go to. And I think it's really lacking and missing. I think that's the one thing that to come out of it. And I suppose it's who takes responsibility for it as well.
So there's a call there to generate a single, reliable, uniform place where that data is kept, and to have some kind of coordinated engagement with Hazel. Hazel, thank you very much for starting off this final day of the conference, and thanks to everybody who engaged with questions. And I'll now be handing over to our next guide, who will take us through the rest of the day, but thank you ever so much.